Hello, my name is Jonathan Solon, and this is the Nevins Train. Today we profile Lucinda Melvina Bodenhamer Griffith, probably the most beautiful name in the whole collection. Lucinda lived a life of luxury in North Carolina until the Civil War wrecked her life as well as her family's. They would relocate to Missouri. She would travel at least once, maybe twice, to western Kansas to be the midwife for her daughter, Maddie Nevins. What a life. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay, let's get started. I've been looking forward to doing this profile because with a name like Lucinda Melvina Bodenhamer, what's not to like? I have done a lot of research, but I have not come up with a huge amount of information about Lucinda Melvina. She's a Bodenhamer, and the Bodenhamer clan were many in the area of Davidson County, North Carolina. Many Bodenhamers. And so she came from a large family. She was born in 1832 and would die in 1904. I'd like to say from the outset, while I haven't been able to find proof, it's entirely likely that they owned slaves. And that's how they would have built their prosperity, which my Aunt Irma would describe as living in the lap of luxury. And we're going to hear from my great Aunt Irma in a moment, and she'll give you some interesting detail from her perspective. Okay, so let's place Lucinda in the family tree. Important for us, I believe, is to understand that Lucinda and her husband Zenith would instill in their children the importance of faith, education, and leadership. And that would allow Martha Elizabeth Griffith to be the wonderful and amazing pioneer woman that she was in Kansas. So that is some of the traits that Lucinda would pass on to her children. Okay, take a look at this amazing photograph. It's the only one I have of Lucinda Melvina. And so she would travel several times from Missouri out to Kansas to be with her family. And this photo was taken around 1900. And so my grandmother, Betty Solon, would not be in this photograph. She would be born a few years later. In fact, my grandmother would be born in the same year that Lucinda passes away, which is 1904. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this amazing recording of my cousin Kathy Nevins interviewing my great aunt Irma. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be posting several newspaper articles. I did do a lot of research trying to find verifiable proof that the Bodenhamers owned slaves. I wasn't able to find any direct connection in the newspaper's database. But I think it's appropriate to post a number of the articles relating to runaway slaves and some of the other articles that I found while doing that research. So here comes the recording as well as several images of articles.
No place, no other family that has that. Mm-hmm. So you and I come with our desire for full equality as a part of our inheritance. I inherited from my parents. You inherited from your great grandparents and from my generation.
Where did your parents get it from? Where do you think? How is it that Martha and Osro had the kind of marriage where they were willing
to do that kind of thing? Well, my mother was a Southerner, and she was born before the Civil War. She came up through the devastation of the South, and with the coming in of the carpetbaggers. And she was born and raised in North Carolina. She went to the schools in North Carolina, and the family was.
She was educated then.
Oh yes, my mother was a seminary graduate.
You're kidding?
No.
What seminary?
And, you know? Yes, I do. It's Secaucus, Missouri. But the family was wrecked because of the Civil War. They had nothing. My grandfather had a brick factory. He owned slaves. He had a big cotton farm. He had all those kind of things. And mother was born in the lap of luxury. The Civil War wrecked them. My grandfather fought in the Civil War on the southern side as a Confederate. They were absolutely wrecked. They had nothing. The slaves were freed. Mother said that Lincoln freed the white man from the slavery, as well as freeing the Negro from slavery. And so it was a two-edged sword as far as my mother was concerned. Mm-hmm. And they moved to southwest Missouri. But they were a family of educated people. And they moved to southwest Missouri. And my grandfather bought a farm. I remember my grandmother had 50 dresses in her trousseau. And all the clothing that the children had after they moved to Missouri was made from the clothing that my grandmother had as a wedding dress. So, but they believed strongly in education. There was a seminary in Secaucus, Missouri, which is close to Joplin. And mother got a teaching certificate from that seminary. And I think that she carried on. She had great courage. Now, she had to have great courage to live in the South. You see, the white people were downtrodden. The carpetbaggers came in from the North. They had a mayor, a black man. They had their congressman was a black man because the carpetbaggers forced that upon the white people. Now, she came up with a desire for freedom. And she saw all this, and she was a participant in all of this. And she wanted to rise above that. And I think that she had tremendous courage in that. As I said, she went to Missouri. They went to the family moved to Missouri. Mother was one of 13 children. In fact, she was the fourth one. And she had this great desire to be a free individual. And I think that this background that she had in the South caused her to do that. Then she met my father, and this is one of the most unusual things. My father's father fought in the Civil War on the Union side. My father would say politics and the Civil War belonged to your mother. He would never, don't remember him ever making a statement about his father being on the Union side. But I heard a lot about my grandfather Griffith, who was on the Confederate side. And they married in southwest Missouri. I once asked mother why she married my dad. And she said because he owned a team of horses and a wagon. And I asked my father once why he married my mother. And he said because she had a teaching certificate. Now, I know that wasn't the fact, but that was true. And then when they came to western Kansas, see, my mother taught school. And my dad was a good farmer. And
so, a lot to unpack there, right? You might just want to back up another 4 minutes and listen to that whole thing again. Wonderful. And that's just a small snippet of the hour plus long dive into Aunt Irma's life. But she was remembering details told to her by her mother and probably directly from her grandmother, because Lucinda Melvina did travel out to Kansas at least several times. And that's where the mystery comes in. I'm showing you now notes from my Uncle Bob on Zenith Clark and Lucinda Melvina and their history. And in this, from a letter written by Lucinda, she notes that money was scarce and she couldn't sell her produce and didn't have money. And she complained that she didn't know how she was going to make it through the year without help from her children. So she had traveled out to Kansas and was in that photo in the Kansas homestead, but had traveled back to Missouri. So my question is, when she went out to Kansas, why didn't she stay? Did she not want to stay? Did the family not want her to stay? Did she feel compelled to move back to Missouri? I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. So that will remain a mystery. So for Lucinda Melvina Bodenhamer, her last years were difficult. She missed her children. She did not have much money. And now for the final mystery, when I did a search on her name, this is pretty much the only thing I found, which was a final settlement notice in the paper regarding her estate. And so it appears to me that she passed away penniless and still owed debts, which I find very curious. It appears that there was no family to help her out. And that's very, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that, because there was a lot of family, but she simply did not have the money to pay out her debts, which is sad. Here is the tombstone. Lucinda is buried with Zenith Clark Griffith. And it appears to me, as she lived another 20 plus years after he passed away at the young age of 46, that her name must have been inscribed on the stone afterwards. So, Lucinda Melvina Bodenhamer, born into a slave-owning family in North Carolina, her life wrecked by the Civil War. She packs up her dresses and rips them apart to make clothes for the children, and instills in them the important values of education, leadership, faith, and led an amazing life. Lucinda Melvina Bodenhamer. What a woman. Until next time on the Soul Train.
Away down yonder in the state of Arkansas, where my great-grandpa met my great-grandma. They drink apple cider and they get on a jag, and they dance all night to the salty dog rag. They play an old fiddle like you never heard before. They play the only tune that they ever did know. It's a ragtime ditty and the rhythm don't drag. Now here's the way you dance to the salty dog rag.